Testing. Are we up? Okay. Good evening. We're glad you're here. Small crowd. The subject is the golden rule for the class. We're going to talk more about that in a second. This is going to be both a review of the class that we've had, and we're going to it's going to serve as Dwayne calls it, a capstone application. We're going to apply it as we review it. So it's going to serve two purposes simultaneously. We're glad you can be here with us. We're going to start with a prayer in a minute. But first, I wanted to read something that Dwayne asked me to read. The topic is applying the golden rule in challenging situations. So I'm going to read this, and then maybe one or two people might want to answer. Think about a time in your family life, recently or in the past, when you were on the receiving end of genuinely golden rule treatment. In other words, positive golden rule treatment. Somebody thought, what would I like? How would I like to be treated in this situation? You felt like you were treated that way. Someone treated you the way you wished they would. What did they do, and what did it do for the relationship? So can anybody think, raise your hand and we'll bring you a mic, anybody think of a time in your life, either in the past or recently, where you were on the receiving end of good, genuine, golden rule treatment, meaning they treated you the wished that they would treat you? It's easy for me to say. Past 5 times. Well, thank you everyone for participating. I think that winds up the class.
See you Sunday.
See you Sunday, yeah. Okay, maybe we'll answer it after the prayer. We've still got people coming in. So we're looking for a time when somebody treated you properly, in a godly way, treated you the way you would have liked to have been treated. Maybe you made a mistake. Maybe they offended you somehow, and nonetheless, the treatment went well. Jeannie wants to talk. Jason's got some. Can you raise your hand if you don't have any? The handout for tonight. It's called Student Handout Lesson 19, Christian Family. Raise your hand. Okay, go ahead, Jeannie.
Bonnie, Bray, and Bill, and family.
Hold, is the mic on? Can you tap it for me, please? A little closer. A little closer.
You want me to start all over again, Herb?
Yeah, go ahead.
Bonnie Bray and her family have been friends of mine for 65 years, and I've never had better friendship in my entire life. And they've always been there for me to and from. And I think it's amazing, because I don't know a lot of people that have any friends.
Good.
Not real friends.
Good. Excellent. Well done. Thank you. And with that, we're going to ask Phil to turn on his mic and tap it, make sure it's on. And then he's going to lead us in an opening prayer and help us to make sure we praise God in this class.
Father in heaven, we're thankful for this time we can come together in your presence and with your word. We ask you to be with us as Herb leads the class, and be with our hearts and our minds, Father, and help us to develop the golden rule. We thank you, Father, that you're the God who gave it to us and that you practice that with us every day. Help us to learn more about this and apply it to our life and to others. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you, Phil. And Jared's going to come and get it. So you may recall that we talked about the golden rule once. And who was teaching? I was. That was the first class. I taught the second class, sorry. My apologies. Dwayne taught the first class, and then he went out of town. I taught the second class. It was my first class to teach. So we're going to look at that. In Lesson 2, the class I taught, we established that the golden rule is the governing principle for this entire session, this quarter, for this class. Everything we have covered since then, love and respect, communication, discipline, forgiveness, honoring parents, leaving a legacy, has been the golden rule applied to a specific situation. And tonight we come full circle, and we're asking, in the hardest situations you are actually facing right now, what does the golden rule demand? So you may be facing some challenging situations. I I've heard from some of you, and I know that some of you are. And so hopefully this will be a tool for you. So in this class, we're going to have 3 parts. First, what does the golden rule demand? Secondly, applying the golden rule. And third, a golden rule framework for decisions that we all have to make in everyday life. There's actually a 4th one called a note of wisdom, but these are the 3 main parts. The first one is what the golden rule demands, actually demands. And there's people that say things about it that are not true. So we're going to revisit or review just briefly the golden rule. And if you recall, this is Matthew 7 and 12. Therefore, whatever you want men to do to you, do also to them. For this is the law and the prophets. Matthew 7 and 12. There's another one in Luke 6. We'll get to that in a bit. Notice what Jesus says here. This is the law and the prophets. We talked about this way back in the 2nd class. He's not adding a new law. He's giving us the summary of everything God has asked for in our relationships. And our relationships with people is what really determines what kind of life we're going to have. Hopefully, we're going to be able to get along with people. And it can be challenging sometimes. Sometimes I give Joe a hard time, and he has to remember the golden rule in that. What does Herb really need in this relationship? And so that's the whole point, our relationships. God knows we have relationships within the church and outside of the church. How do we get along with people? And Jesus says, this is the law. It's a summary of the law and the prophets. Every topic covered in this quarter, I just read that. Love and respect, all of that was the golden rule applied to specific situations. Our purpose today is to come back to the beginning of the class and apply those where it is most difficult. So, part B, or section B, Jesus raises the standard. And now we're going to look at Luke 6, which is the other reading of the golden rule. But I say to you who hear, love your enemies, do good to those who hate you, bless those who curse you, and pray for those who abuse you. That's 27 and 28. Now we have 31 to 32. And just as you want men to do to you, you also do to them likewise. See that? If you want men to do to you, do to them. Treat them like you want to be treated. Golden rule. But if you love those who love you, what credit is that to you? For even sinners love those who love them. If I just love my grandkids, that's easy. I think they kind of love me no matter what. So that's easy. We're asked to do more than that. But love your enemies. Do good and lend, hoping for nothing in return, and your reward will be great, and you will be sons of the Most High. Don't you want to be a son of the Most High or a daughter of the Most High? Absolutely. I do. I don't think I'm doing so good sometimes, but that's what I aspire to be, as a son of the Most High. So see those verbs? Love your enemies, do good, and lend. Love, do good, and lend. That's going to come back in a little bit. Luke's version demands more than Matthew's version. Matthew's version was kind of succinct. Luke expands it a little bit. Did you notice that? So the contrast that Jesus draws here, love your enemies, not just I had to abbreviate it. You can't put that much on these slides. So it's not only people who love you, which would be friends and family. Love all of them. Don't just do good to those who mistreat you, not just to those who appreciate you. It's easy to do things for Ryan and Carrie Ann and to be nice to them because they're nice to me back. That's easy. I don't have a problem with that. But there are going to be people who don't appreciate me and who are going to mistreat me. And the golden rule says, still do good to those. Lend, expecting nothing in return, not just when you'll get it back. You got a brother that needs help, lend them some money. And don't expect it back. If you can't lend them, then that's fine. But if you're going to lend it expecting nothing in return. That's the principle. Part C is the golden rule is not the same as being a doormat. And I've got up there, it's a common misunderstanding. Did you hear that growing up every so often? I did. Well, the golden rule just means you have to be a doormat. You just have to let people run all over you. That's what the golden rule means. And it doesn't mean that, but that's what some people have led it to believe, or that it requires us to accept mistreatment passively. Just sit there and take it. And that's not true. But it does demand that we ask questions first of ourselves. Phil's got his hand up. Can you It wants us to ask questions. Let us be curious. What do I need to do in this situation? What does this person need in this situation? How can I help this person? How can I reconcile this relationship? Phil?
The golden rule requires us to be prepared to act in these situations that we find ourselves in. So the issue is not what somebody does to you.
True.
The issue is, are you prepared to respond appropriately with Christ and follow his example?
Thank you. I agree. Because people are going to do things to you that you kind of go, oh, wow, I didn't see that coming. So ask the question, okay, what would I want in this situation? How would I want to be treated if that was me? Which is what I just said, how you want to be treated. If you're doing something that was harming yourself or others, how would you want to be treated? If I was, I don't know, taking all the money I had and going gambling. I mean, that doesn't sound appealing to me at all, but I've never done that. But I'm throwing out a hypothetical. And I'm not making fun of it. It happens. So I'm not making fun. I'm just saying I can tell you that that's never been a temptation for me. So if I were doing that and you knew about it, I would want you to, what's that old saying? Get a 2x4 and hit me upside the head. Get my attention, as they do the mules. But get my attention. Say, Herb, I don't really think Trish wants you to do that. You really care about those grandkids. I don't think that's what they want you to do. Can we talk about that? So how would you want to be treated if you were the one that was harming yourself or others? You would want somebody to confront you and not just go along. Don't enable. Don't just, oh, well, that's Herb. He's stubborn, which I am. And I don't know how to deal with him. How would you want to be treated if your spouse was enabling a bad habit in you? How would I want Trish to treat me if I had a bad habit? I would want honest love, not silence. Not sit in silence and but find a way. Listen, can we talk about this? This seems like you've developed a bad habit, and we do have that conversation actually. And it's challenging, I will admit, but it's not good for us to sit in silence when our husband or our wife feels like we've developed a bad habit or developed doing something that is unhealthy and unwise. So we want to ask the question, how would I want to be treated? If you were in a broken, and I asked Dwayne to define this broken, I want to be clear. So he said, well, I would call it a strained or a suboptimal relationship. May I just get my water here? So if you can imagine a broken relationship as defined by being a strained or suboptimal. And he said it's a range. If you can imagine relationships are on a range, I get along, I think I get along really well with all of you all, but maybe people out in the world might be somewhere in the middle, and then maybe people that I don't really know and don't understand are over here, really strained. So it's a spectrum. So if you're in a broken relationship, you would want the other person in that relationship to initiate a conversation rather than avoid it indefinitely. If we understand that our relationship is strained, whoever that's with, it can be husband and wife, typically that's who it would be. It could be father and son and mother-daughter, it could be parent to older children, it could be friends. But if you have a relationship that is broken, as in strained or suboptimal, rather than just ignore it, you would want somebody to initiate the conversation rather than avoiding it. Or you would want them to engage if you initiate it. So you've got two people that are having a strained relationship, and I'm starting, and it's Joe and I would hope that he would respond in kind. If I said, Joe, we've got a strained relationship, which we don't, but if we did, can we talk about this? I'd want him not to go, no, I don't want to talk about it. I can't, that's too hard. I would hope that he would say, yeah, let's talk about that. So respond in kind. You would want people to engage. That's the golden rule. And you would want them to address it proportionally. Now we're going to define proportionally as if the relationship is seriously damaged and the other person treats it like it's not a big deal, that's frustrating. If Trish says something to me and I go, no, you're crazy. That's not true, or I never did that, or whatever, then I'm treating it like it's not a big deal, and it is a big deal to her. Or if it's something that's minor, if she did something and I blew it up out of proportion, that's not golden rule relationship. So respond in kind. Respond based on how important it is. And the response should match the seriousness of the situation. It should be, if somebody has a bad habit like gambling, then that's serious. So you want to respond in a serious way. So that's golden rule relationship. Finally, you'd want the other person to listen and work together and work toward full restoration. Remember, we talked about that in one of my classes later. Restoration of relationships, a full functioning relationship that honors God and meets both people's needs. That's golden rule. How do I treat my wife or your wife or husband, friends, family? How do you work toward restoring the relationship? And golden rule says what would be good for this person? What would be good to honor God in this? That's golden rule relationship. It requires wisdom. It's always asking what would genuinely serve the person the way I'd want to be served. So that means you got to know what the person needs. If I need to know what Joe needs, or if he needs to know what I need in our relationship, he's going to have to think about that. Pray. Maybe he can talk to his wife, or maybe he can talk to my wife. I don't know, but he needs to find out what is it that I need. He can ask me. That's also another. Herb, what do you need here? We're having a hard time. What do you need? What would genuinely serve me, and how would he want it if he was the one that was in this situation? So it's asking the question in wisdom. I want to be wise. So let's go to discussion question number 1. This is your chance to speak. I've been doing all the talking. Looking back at the entire quarter, which is what we've been trying to do, where have you most consistently applied the golden? Oh, why is the D hanging off there? Did you do that, Lou? Is that your fault? Just kidding. The D, is it not hanging off behind me? Okay, good. Ignore what I said. Where have you most consistently applied the golden rule in your family, and where have you most consistently? I used to spell, period. Sorry, please forgive me. My wife's an English teacher. Where have you most consistently failed to apply it? So who would like to go? Raise your hand or bring a mic to you. Looking back at the quarter, where have you most consistently applied the golden rule in your family? Joe's got his hand up. And where have you most consistently failed to apply it? Just move that in over.
As far as consistently, I think with Susan, and I think that would be the natural place that would occur. I think probably let's see which one. Oh, the failed. I mean, probably for me, maybe Will, because Will, our relationship is okay. It's not the greatest. We're very different people. He's got his ideas and I have mine. But as I was sort of thinking about this, just broadly speaking, I'm not going to run into a lot of problems with Susan, generally. I mean, we've been married for a number of years and things of that nature. Mm-hmm. But it brought up something that you talked about. I have to approach her even when I don't want to make her mad, things like that.
Right.
But sometimes I have to bring something up, or sometimes she'll bring something up to me. And like you said, even though it may be hard to do so, that's what that person may need. The flip side of that coin, which sort of was not addressed, is for the people that you have a bit more difficulty, you always talk to them. No, you didn't do that right. No, you didn't do that right. No, you didn't. How would I want it to be for me if I didn't do a lot of stuff right? Would I want somebody to always be...
How would you want to be treated?
How would I want to be treated? And so I think there's the other side of the coin that sometimes we need to be bold when we have a very close relationship. And on the other hand, when we have maybe a strained relationship, as opposed to the only thing that we do is to criticize or condemn or put down or whatever the story may be, that we would think twice and maybe be a bit more quiet and help that relationship build theirs, because maybe this person did something wrong, but to constantly bring it up. And I'm saying that because I'm looking in the mirror, because I think that's part of the problem with Will and I, is sometimes that, he'll do something, maybe it's not what he should have done, but it's a situation where, maybe I don't need to say something. Let's give him a break, or let it come to pass and it's better. I didn't mean to hog the question,
That's
but
okay.
those are
answer.
the two situations on extremes that I came across.
Good answer. Thank you, Joe. Anybody else? Any hands? Dave? Dave's got his hand up.
I guess for me, it's not so much who it is or where it is. It's more, where am I at the moment? You know, am I stressed? Am I distracted? Am I being spiritually minded as I should?
Sure.
Have I spent time that morning in study and prayer? And so, you know, in Matthew 7, the next verse is about entering through the narrow and the hard way.
Yes,
And Jesus connects these two. And so it is hard
he does.
to do that.
It is hard.
But it is nevertheless expected of us.
It is.
And for me, it's inconsistent. It's kind of situational. And yeah, whether I'm being who I should be or whether I'm not.
What's your situation right now? Where are you? Yeah. Good point. Any other hands? Okay, thank you. Good answers. I appreciate that, both of you. So part 2 of this 3-part class is applying the golden rule and a curriculum review. If you recall, lessons 2 through 6, if 2 was kind of the golden rule, so actually it's 3 through 6. But we studied we studied marriage. So our question tonight is, what does the golden rule look like in marriage? And of course, Ephesians 5:25, husbands, love your wives, just as Christ also loved the church, and he gave himself up for it. So husbands, this is our command, to love our wife as Christ did. And Tim talked about that in his class a while back. As Christ loved the church. That's powerful. We don't have time to talk about it, but to say, to love my wife as Christ loved the church, I can't even hardly touch the hem of the garment. But that's what he's asking us to do, and he gave himself up for her. So we're asked to give ourselves up for our wife. In Ephesians 5:33, nevertheless, let each one of you in particular so love his own wife as himself, and let the wife see that she respects her husband. So there we have the sample, the example of husbands love your wives, wives respect your husbands. So the most basic application of the golden rule of marriage is a husband who wanted to be respected. You know, I just wish my wife would respect me. He would ask, using the golden rule, how am I showing her my love? Am I going the extra mile? Am I doing what it takes for her, wherever, like Dave talked about, wherever somebody is, to wherever she is, am I showing my love to her, and how am I doing that? Okay, so consequently, same application, a wife who wanted to be loved by her husband would say, wait, how am I showing him my respect? I want my husband to love me. But am I showing him my respect? How am I doing that? That's the golden rule. Stop and think before we make accusations. Tempers get raised, voices get loud. Kind of slow down, and in wisdom say, how am I doing on this? How am I showing love to my wife? Or the wife would say, how am I showing respect to the husband? Because that's what husbands are looking for, and that's what wives are looking for. That's using the golden rule in marriage. In hard situations, it might be when your spouse has hurt you. Okay, this is harder. This is not just love or respect. This is, I'm hurt. So I would ask, if my wife has hurt me, how would I want to be treated by her? How would I want to respond to her? So when your spouse has hurt you, or when you realize you've hurt the spouse, it's like Dwayne talked about who's responsible for mending a relationship. The first one that realizes it needs to be mended. So whoever that is, the first person. So if I realize that I've hurt my wife, it's up to me to go, you know what, stop. I didn't do this right. I've hurt you. I'm sorry. Can we talk about how that happened and how you feel and so on? When you speak to your spouse in unhealthy ways, and I'm being generous there, but in unhealthy ways, unwise ways, lose our tempers, we say things we shouldn't, make accusations. You always do this, and I always do that. And before you know it, we're into a situation. Or how do you want to be heard in a conflict? Maybe it's just a disagreement. Maybe it's not necessarily over morality, but maybe it's the color of the carpet, or who knows. And so how do you want to be heard when there's a conflict? Well, I would stop and ask, wait, how would my wife, you got your hand up, Bobby? Oh, right, so I was excited. How would I want to be heard if I was in a conflict? And I might even ask, how would she like to be heard if we're in a conflict? So that's using the golden rule and applying it in hard situations. James 1:19, be quick to hear, slow to speak, slow to anger. Notice there's two slows there. And there's only one quick, and it's quick to hear. Quick to hear. Am I listening? It's like my wife and I've talked about. When we first got married, my listening was just horrible. I mean, it was just horrible. I was, Debbie. I'm telling the truth. And it's taken a long time. But the question was, and you've probably heard this, am I listening to hear and understand, or am I listening to defend? And with me, it was listening to defend, without a doubt. So I wasn't paying attention to James 1:19. I should be slow to speak and slow to anger, and that's what I'm working on. That's what the golden rule says. So now we're going to do discussion question number 2. In marriages or in any close relationship, it doesn't have to be marriages, but that's an easy one to use. What is the hardest situation in which you struggle to apply the golden rule, and what makes it hard? And we've got a hand up in the back.
And Herb, just kind of still on question 1, and I'm not married, so take my thoughts for a grain of salt. But one of the things is, notice if your spouse or if somebody you're in a relationship with hurts you, notice if they already know. If they already know and are beating themselves up about it, adjust your approach there. There is no reason to go in guns blazing to somebody who is already beating themselves up and feeling horribly. You can't make them feel any worse. They already know. So I think that's very much golden rule. Nobody, if you realize you've wronged somebody, you don't need that person to come and pound on your head. You already know. And if you're that person, how would you want to be treated? With certainly forgiveness and understanding, because you're already at the repentant place. So I'm just saying, you got to consider the whole situation. There's no one-size-all reaction to a situation when you've been hurt or when somebody else has been hurt. And
Thank you, Jason.
again, try also not to be defensive when somebody comes to you and says they've been hurt.
Yeah.
Because something that may not be a big deal to you could be a very big deal to somebody else.
That's right. That's right. Thank you, Jason. Any hands? I don't see any hands. So I'm going to tell a funny one to illustrate it. Trish, everyone knows Trish likes her hot tea. And when she sits down, she likes to have it in quiet and enjoy it. She can talk, but not having, the TV on or having other things going, vacuuming the floor and all that. So we remember in one of these movies with the Queen of England and Queen Elizabeth, who passed, she and her husband, Prince Philip, is that who it was always trying to have tea. And sure enough, just as they would sit down to have their tea, they would get announced, well, the prime minister is here, or the secretary of whatever is here. And the prince would say, don't they know we're trying to have tea? And so we've laughed about that a little bit when she'll sit down and the phone rings or somebody comes over. Well, that's a big thing to her, but for some people, it's a small thing. Am I getting feedback, or it just in my ears? So that's just an example of, be careful, something that's important to your spouse may not be so important to you, but think about that. It's a funny illustration, but it's an example that we can struggle sometimes applying the golden rule if we're not careful. So we're going to move on to the section B. In lessons 7 through 8, and 13, we discussed parenting. So we're going to look at the golden rule in parenting. And you fathers, do not provoke your children to wrath, but bring them up in the training and admonition of the Lord. That's in Ephesians 6-4. And the golden rule in parenting asks, how would you want to be parented if you were your child right now? That can be kind of hard, I imagine. We have two young fathers. Well, we've got three, but I don't know that Ernest is ready for this yet, but we've got 2 or 3 young fathers in here. How would you want to be, Jared's got his hand up, be really good, Jared, I'd love for you to speak. How would you want to be parented if you were your child right now? Okay, Jared, go.
Something I've done that looking back, I wish my parents had done would be to have spirituality and prayer be a part of your life daily. Growing up, we did grow up in the church, and my dad read his Bible every day, but we weren't really, we didn't have spiritual conversation or prayers or things like that on a daily basis. They kind of just kept that to themselves, or he did it for himself. And then we'd pray for meals, for the big Sunday dinner, not necessarily for dinner every day, but
the pot roast.
But just the point is, we didn't have a lot of daily spiritual interaction, and I think that was detrimental. So I just decided at some point as a parent, thinking back,
we all
if my parents had been that way, that would have been helpful. So I decided to do that. So
good.
We do a routine of praying nightly, every single night, with both kids, and that's what I've done. I don't like to use myself as an example, but I just wanted to put that out there, just because of the difference between how I was raised and how I'm trying to raise my kids.
Excellent, thank you. Well said. So how would you want your parent to respond if you made the mistake your child just made right now? Golden rule. How would you want your parent to respond if you were the one guilty of whatever it was that's happened? That's the golden rule. How would you want your parent to discipline you? What kind of tone would you want them to use? What kind of process? What kind of outcome? What would you want them to do if you were the child that had just done this that was like, it's not so good? That's the golden rule in parenting. How would you want a parent to handle a conversation about something you did that was wrong? Would you want a lecture? No, I agree. Or would you at least want to be heard? Tell me what you were thinking. This doesn't make sense to me, but tell me what you're thinking. I want to hear. And then once you've heard, then you can go on. But at least be heard, hear what's being said. In lesson 13, we talked about how that connection comes before correction. That is really important. That's not just golden rule. That's very healthy and wise way to live. Influence flows through connection. If we want to change our spouse, or if we want, in this case, we're parenting, we need to make sure we have connection first. The golden rule asks, what kind of connection are we building in this relationship? Are we just trying to I can imagine somebody saying that, my way or the highway. But that's not building connection. That's being a dictator. And so that's about adult children and their parents. That was the lessons 11-14. Honor your father and mother, that your days may be long upon the land, which the Lord your God is giving you. And that's in Exodus 20. The golden rule works in both directions between parents and children. Lesson 14 taught that reconciliation and forgiveness require someone to go first. That's what I was just talking about. The golden rule identifies who? It's the one who became aware of the breach. I realize that I've done something wrong. It's up to me. If it's between my wife or with Joe or whoever, it's up to me to go, you know what? I didn't do this right. Now, sometimes what we want to do is go, maybe they won't find out. Or maybe if I act like it didn't happen, it didn't really happen. That's not going to be successful. That is not a successful way to treat things. Grandparents and legacy, we talked about that in one of the lessons I taught in lessons 15 and 17. We will not hide them from their children, telling them to the generation to come to praise the praises of the Lord in Psalm 78. The golden rule and legacy would be, how would you want to be treated if your grandparents were the next generation? So I made it personal. So Jared, I did make it about me. I would have wanted my grandparents to tell their stories. I didn't get that. It's okay. It doesn't mean I'm ruined for life. But I would have wanted my grandparents to tell their stories. I wanted them to live a genuine faith. I think they did. I'm going to give them a passing grade. It's fine. I don't think they were hypocrites or anything. I wanted them, but not Sunday morning only. That's the part that I kind of wonder about. I wanted them to pray for me by name even before I was born. Don't know that they did that, but those of us who are grandparents, you can do that now. Are you still expecting one, Rory? Okay. You can pray that one. You don't have a name yet, though, do you? You don't have a name for that child yet? But you can pray for the child. Okay. That's what I would have wanted, and that's what some of us would have wanted. The standard of Psalm 78 says, the generation to come deserves from us what we would have wanted from the generation before us. What I would have wanted from my grandparents. That's Psalm 78. So the golden rule in the hardest situations. A family member who has hurt you. Or when your efforts are not appreciated. Or when you feel like giving up on a relationship. Time to break out the golden rule. Family members hurt you. You're hurt. You're offended. It happened to me. Start thinking about that tonight. I don't know that I've applied the golden rule in that relationship. I have forgiven them. I don't know if I've gone all the way. When your efforts are not appreciated, time to break out the golden rule. When you feel like giving up on a relationship, it's time to break out the golden rule. So the discussion question 3, is there a family member, we have 2.5, 3 minutes. Is there a family member right now for whom it feels impossible to apply the golden rule? What would it look like specifically, not generally, to apply Luke 6:35 to that relationship now? And that's me. I'm probably feeling like it's impossible to apply it. I know it's not. I'm confessing. It's just I'm being convicted right now. So I get that. Anybody else? Raise your hand. We'll bring a mic to you. A golden rule framework for decisions. The 4 questions. I really appreciate it. That's why I'm trying to move fast. When you're facing a hard family situation, like what we just talked about, those 3 questions, and aren't sure how to respond, these 4 questions can help you apply the golden rule practically. So I can only put 2 on the screen at a time. It's in your handout. How would I want to be treated if I were in their position right now? So if you've got a relationship that's broken, a friend, you've been offended, you're having a really hard time, how would I want to be treated if I were in their position? 2, what does this person need from me? Not what they deserve. God will make sure they get what they deserve. But what do they need from me? That's a really hard question. Because it means we have to be humble, and we have to take our pride and set it out on the counter and say, I'm not going to let my pride get in the way here. Number 3, what would treating them the way I want to be treated require me to do or say? What specifically do I need to do or say to follow the golden rule? And number 4, is there anything I am doing right now that I would not want done to me? That's embarrassing. It embarrasses. Am I doing something to this person because they've hurt me that I wouldn't want done to me? That's the golden rule. Okay? So those are 4 questions that you can ask yourself. You could ask, of the situation. Talk about it with your wife, unless she's the one that's, that you're having a hard time with. Question 4. Walk through the 4 questions above with one specific situation you are facing in your family right now. What does the golden rule tell you to do, and what is stopping you from doing it? Anybody want to answer? A note on wisdom. The golden rule requires wisdom. A parent, second Bill? Yep. A parent who enables an adult child's harmful choices is not applying the golden rule. They are applying the path of least resistance. So we don't want to be enablers. So we've got, as Joe said, we got to sometimes do the hard thing. Thank you for listening and for doing the review. So I've got a slide right here now. The new quarter starts Sunday. Have you signed up for one of the 3 adult classes yet? If you haven't, it really helps. It helps us with material, with a lot of things. So if you haven't, you've got a few minutes to go right back there and put your name down.